south towards South Parade, B409, then turn left onto South Parade. London Ultra Low Emission Zone en route. This route avoids a road closure on Acton Lane. You are on the fastest route. You should reach your destination by 23:43. In 300 yards, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Bolo Lane.
Times Radio Breakfast with Asma Mir and Stig Abel.
The Labour government is about to set out its plan for the next 5 years. Meanwhile, the Welsh Labour government is falling off a cliff.
Who knows what will happen next at the Republican convention or in American politics more generally. We'll make sure you don't miss anything. And Giles Coren and Rena Curry will be together. Would they do Strictly What a thought that is.
Times Radio Breakfast with Asma Mir and Stig Abel. Tomorrow morning from 6 on Times Radio.
Get your passport to wine discovery with Asda's Wine Atlas range. Award-winning hidden gems of Europe from just £6 a bottle. Like the floral Il de Bote Rosé from France, the crisp Fetiasca Regala from Romania, the fresh Caricante from Italy, and more. Great adventures await. Asda, that's more like it. Selected stores online subject to availability, 75cl. Wines awarded International Wine Challenge Bronze or Silver. May exclude Asda Express in small stores. Asda.com/small stores.
This summer is for sharing. Introducing McDonald's new chicken share boxes with chicken McNuggets, select, and a choice of dips. Perfect for ordering in with big games on. Or if you're making the most of the summer with mates. Order now with delivery or in restaurant. Available till the 3rd of September 2024. Served from 11 a.m. Subject to availability.
Listen to Times Radio at 6:30 every weekday morning for your indispensable briefing on the latest politics, business and sports news of the day.
Darren Morris on Times Radio.
Hello, good evening. We're going to have a really geeky conversation about what happens at tomorrow's state opening of Parliament shortly. Really looking forward to this. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts, all the sort of weird and wonderful processes that take place at this sort of archaic spectacle that is the state opening of Parliament tomorrow. Firstly, after months of being dogged by controversy over donations, leaks and resignations, Wales's First Minister Vaughan Gething announced his resignation today. Laura McAllister is a Professor of Governance of Wales at Cardiff University.
I think it was inevitable that this would happen.
In 300 yards, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Gunnersbury Lane, A4000.
It's taken so long because the issues surrounding his leadership have plagued his time as First Minister, or 118 days of it, from the very beginning, because the issue of the donations arose during his election campaign, as did the changes to union regulations in terms of the campaign and support. And so, as a result, I think a lot of us were waiting either for an apology or some contrition at least about what had happened from Vaughan Gething himself, or from some rebellion amongst the Labour group. And really, we've seen a whole sequence of events since then. We've seen the vote of no confidence. We've seen the sacking of a deputy minister with, a lack of evidence as to the source of the leak. And of course, we've seen turmoil in the Labour group. So I think there was an inevitability about what's happened today.
In a quarter of a mile, turn left onto Gunnersbury Avenue, A406.
Something that's happening a lot at the moment, Laura, which is a sort of snowballing of events, right? One thing happens in the case of Vaughan Gething, it'll be sources of funding for his election campaign, followed by another thing quite quickly, and another thing, and they seem to snowball, build and build and build, quicker than they've ever done in politics, it seems. And we're seeing leaders fall like this more often.
Yes, and I don't think there's any great surprise in that, really. We live in a much more exposed environment where social media allows campaigns against politicians to accelerate. There's very few places to hide now in politics, are there? And therefore...
Turn left onto Gunnersbury Avenue, A406.
Public feel is a threat to integrity. And I think, in fairness to Vaughan Gething, he didn't do anything wrong legalistically. Taking the donation, albeit from a company that had environmental offences to its name, was not out with the regulations for the Labour leadership campaign. But it doesn't take a great genius to realise that that's a rather foolish thing to do. And that, it raises questions of judgment and decision making and so on. But I have to say that had Vaughan Gething had a different approach to dealing with this, had he been better advised maybe, and had apologised and offered to give the money back and shown that he regretted the decision and he felt it did expose him to accusations of corrupt behaviour, even if he wasn't being corrupt, I think this could have been avoided. I think maybe he could have survived, but in his resistance to do it...
Continue on Gunnersbury Avenue for half a mile.
Let's take a step back as well, Laura, because another sort of theme that it seems to be part of is the poorness of the country's devolved administrations hitting the rocks. We've obviously seen Nicola Sturgeon and Humza Yousaf in quick succession face problems. Northern Ireland is, of course, a unique set of circumstances, so we'll perhaps park that for there something that we can deduce from that, Laura? Does it tell us something about devolved power at the moment and how it is or isn't working?
No, it doesn't, because for every one of these incidents, there have been a whole series of incidents at Westminster in central government of the same type. In fact, probably a lot worse if you look back at the last 5 to 6 years of the...
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the 4th exit onto Great West Road.
Huge, unprecedented turnover of ministers. We also saw Partygate, we saw corruption, we saw cash for questions, we saw expenses scandals. So I think it's a complete red herring to talk about this as if it's an issue to do with devolved governance. It's an issue to do with political governance everywhere in the world. And if, in many respects, and I've said this a few times today when I've been discussing this with the media, I think this is a real landmark moment for Wales. It's a sign of effective scrutiny. It's a sign of a more emboldened Labour group who will not accept this from their leader. It's a sign of a much stronger media in Wales who've pursued this issue with vigour and with a strong approach to scrutiny. This is only what's gone on in politics at UK level for the whole time I've been involved as a political commentator, and a long time before that. So all we're seeing now is greater interest in the devolved government. Unfortunately, all these incidents have happened fairly close together, and therefore it does suggest that it's a pattern rather than a series of incidents. But I genuinely think this is just a sign of how politics works. We're living in an age where, unfortunately, the public has very little respect for politicians, and they deem them to be corrupt, even when they're not. And so when an incident arises that casts doubt on the integrity of politician, not surprisingly, people jump on board and challenge and criticise. And I personally think that's a really good thing.
Right, yeah. That's an interesting way of looking at it, isn't it? Maybe this is the system working, not working. That's exactly right.
Yeah, why do we assume that, effective scrutiny that brings down a politician is a bad thing?
Yeah, no, that's a fair...
I wouldn't want to see people lose their jobs if the issue wasn't a serious one, but I think in this case it was a very serious one.
Fair point. Just very, very quickly, Laura, we're very tight on time, but I just want to ask you, what comes next?
Well, we'll know more in the next 48 hours, but the first thing that has to happen is that Welsh Labour has to decide how it wishes to elect its new leader, whether it's going to be a full-blown contest, and I would be very surprised if it was a kind of coronation rather than an electoral contest, whether it will operate by the same rules, and then the timeline for Vaughan Gething standing down, because there are some statutory issues relating to the replacement of a First Minister, so there has to be a vote for a new First Minister within 28 days of the existing one standing down. So it's only a small window, and I think everything will be predicated on how Welsh Labour approach the next stages now.
Laura McAllister, who is Professor of Governance of Wales at Cardiff University. The story will follow, of course, bring you the latest as that leadership contest happens and a new First Minister of Wales takes their place. Tomorrow, by the way, some more procedure for us to consider: the state opening of Parliament and a King's speech that will outline Labour's plan for the next year, follow all the twists and turns of that, and this beautifully strange ceremony here on Times Radio tomorrow. It dates back to the 14th century, of course, but how does it work? What do all these intricacies and sort of weird little quirks really mean? David Torrance is an author, also...
Exit the roundabout onto Great West Road.
He specialises in the relationship between Parliament and the monarchy.
The day begins at two palaces, really. Obviously, at the Palace of Westminster, MPs assemble in their house, a certain number of peers, as well as judges, diplomats, and invited guests assemble in the Lords. And then in the other palace, the King and Queen are assembling in various carriages to make their way to the palace, although they're preceded by maces by the imperial.
Continue on Great West Road for half a mile.
For the occasion. Once the King has reached the palace, he makes his way up the staircase to the robing room. He changes into his parliamentary robes and the crown. He and the Queen and others, including the heralds and pursuivants from the College of Arms, make their way through the Royal Gallery to the Lord's Chamber. And only once they've reached the House of Lords does the King indicate to Black Rod that she is to...
In a quarter of a mile, use the left lane to take the M4 slip road to Heathrow Airport.
To hear the King's speech in the House of Lords. And of course the ceremonial around that is very familiar. Blackrock bangs on the door of the House of Commons, which is slammed in their face very uncertain.
Use the left lane to take the M4 slip road, then merge onto M4.
In quite a leisurely fashion, leading members of the government and opposition, and of course the Speaker and some officials, make their way to the bar of the House of Commons.
Yes, okay, and that's the bit that we're all looking out for. The nods and the winks and the chat and what kind of, what do they say to each other. Could you give us just a very brief history? I mean, what a sort of origin?
Continue on M4 for 14 miles.
Origins lie in the fact that we, by which I mean England, used to have, an all-powerful monarchy. The king was, executive leader, legislator, judge, jury, all the rest of it. And so they would summon what was then the Parliament of England, and we're talking, almost 800 or 900 years ago, to basically tell them what he wanted that session or that Parliament to do in terms of legislation, in terms of raising money, and all the rest of it. And so it dates from a time when the King's speech was very much a statement of the King's views and the King's agenda. Of course, over time that has evolved along with many aspects of what became the British Constitution, so that it's now very firmly in the government's court, and the King has been reduced, if you like, to a sort of cipher, a spokesman almost for what the government of the day is planning. But as in so many other respects in our system, we have retained the sort of language, the optics, and the ceremonial, which attaches to a very different era in history.
Yeah, okay, more on that in a sec. Am I also right in thinking, David, that an MP is kidnapped and taken to Buckingham Palace?
So kidnapped might be treating it slightly strongly. And so, as you might know, there are several junior members of the government who are simultaneously members of the royal household. And again, this speaks to the fact that the royal household used to run the country. One of them is, I think it's Samantha Dixon. She is Vice Chamberlain of the household, otherwise known as a whip. There is a custom, and actually its origins are slightly opaque, of the Vice Chamberlain being taken to the palace in a carriage, in some comfort, it might be said, and detained at the palace for as long as the king is at the other palace doing the state opening and the king's speech. And it's not for very long. By all accounts, they watch it on television. They're given something nice to drink by an official, and it's all quite comfortable. It's certainly been happening for a couple of 100 years, but that particular tradition might not be as old as many people believe. But as with many of these things, it's actually quite difficult to pinpoint when it started.
Right. So its origin, though, is when. What is its origin?
Well, it's a sort of insurance policy. Again, several centuries ago, relations between Parliament and the monarch could often be quite fraught. Obviously, you had the particularly bloody events of the 17th century when King Charles I was executed. Another monarch later that century was effectively deposed. Of course, things are now much more harmonious and less violent, but basically that tradition speaks to a point at which you couldn't guarantee that the king would be coming back unharmed.
Right, okay, so an insurance policy, you're interested. And what does Blackrod do all year round?
Well, Blackrod is a senior official, mainly in the House of Lords, and they're also plugged into the royal household. She was particularly busy last week. She had to summon the Commons twice to the House of Lords. First of all, to direct them to elect a Speaker or re-elect a Speaker, and secondly, for royal approbation of Sir Lindsay Hoyle once he'd been re-elected. She also does that throughout the year. If there's a prorogation ceremony, as there was before the general election, and otherwise is involved in an administrative sense in sort of oiling the wheels between Buckingham Palace and the Palace of Westminster.
Right, got it, okay. This was the obvious question, David. Do we need to do this?
That's not my pay grade, really. Well, in a certain sense, Parliament has already been opened. this is quite an important point. Parliament was opened last Tuesday by representatives of the King. They're called Royal Commissioners or Lords Commissioners. It's basically the leader of the House of Lords, the leader of the crossbench peers, and they sat there doffing caps and doing another particularly old picturesque ceremony. So Parliament was opened at that point. What's happening tomorrow is the opening of the session, but it is by and large just a bit of theatre. An analogy in that sense is the coronation. We had a coronation last year. A coronation is not strictly necessary for someone to reign as king or queen, but nevertheless it's quite a firmly embedded tradition. The state opening, I think, falls into the same category, although it forms part of what is called the law and custom of Parliament, part of the common law. Most parliamentarians, I think, like that this happens. I think there will be some who think it's probably outdated. Back in 1997, when Tony Blair was first elected, there were actually plans to get rid of it. That government had floated that idea, but that didn't happen, which perhaps speaks to its enduring impact. And it's the only occasion in the year, and it's roughly once a year, when the three parts of Parliament come together in one place: the Commons, the Lords, and of course the King.
How interesting. David Torrance, who is an author, also a clerk of the House of Commons Library, sorry about that, Mary, who's been in touch to say it's clerk, not clerk. I think I've spent too long talking about American politics. That's why it's got to me, hasn't it, Mary? Sorry about that. Thank you for the message, though. All the twists and turns of that tomorrow, by the way, on Times Radio. All the build-up all morning. Then we'll bring you the King's speech live, and we'll dissect it, poke it, prod it from every angle. You will not miss a beat on Times Radio, so be with us tomorrow. I would highly recommend, by the way, downloading the app. Just search for Times Radio in the App Store. That means you can listen to us wherever you go. So if you're out and about tomorrow, you won't miss it. It's that simple. Just search for Times Radio on the App Store. Okay, next we're going to talk about the e-gaming Olympics. That's a huge, massive phenomenon, isn't it? E-gaming, massive industry, loads of cash, millions of people getting involved. We've had e-gaming World Cups. Now there'll be an e-gaming Olympics. We'll talk about the rise of the Scouts as well. They are back, more people than ever signing up to the Scouts. We'll find out why before midnight on Times Radio. Let's get some news first. Just gone at 11:30. Here's Tom Crosdale.
Across the UK, on DAB, online, and on your smart speaker, this is Times Radio.
Thanks, Darryl. Good evening. US President Joe Biden has given his first political speech since the assassination attempt on his White House rival, Donald Trump. He's condemned violence of any form, telling a civil rights convention he's grateful Mr. Trump wasn't more seriously hurt. The former president has been described by Boris Johnson as being on superb form. At the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Mr. Johnson says they discussed Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and Philip Crowther, who's an international correspondent at AP News, says that will have been welcomed by Kyiv, given the beliefs of Mr. Trump's running mate.
J.D. Vance's view is clear. There should be negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, and it would be just fine to give Russia some of that territory that it is currently occupying in Ukraine. And J.D. Vance is also somebody who is certainly not for massive military aid for Ukraine from the United States. So there is a lot of lobbying there to be done on behalf, not necessarily directly of the Ukrainian government.
Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is promising to take the brakes off Britain. The new laws he's planning to bring in will be outlined in the King's speech tomorrow. It's thought planning rules will be changed, meaning people won't be able to block plans for new homes in their area. Jay Slater's relatives say their hearts are broken and they can't believe he's gone. A month after the 19-year-old disappeared in Tenerife, police have found his body near to where he was last seen. They think he fell in the mountainous terrain in the village of Masca. And on a visit to Guernsey, the King has sampled half a pint of an ale, which was brewed to celebrate his coronation. Queen Camilla, meantime, has been given some cheese from a local dairy company, which they say is an early present for her 77th birthday tomorrow. Let's get the sports news now. Here's Will Hobbs.
Chelsea say they're investigating a video of their midfielder Enzo Fernandez and his Argentinian teammates appearing to sing a racist chant about French players of African heritage. Fernandez's Chelsea teammate Wes Wesley Fofana has taken to Twitter to describe it as uninhibited racism. Other Chelsea teammates have unfollowed Fernandes on social media. England captain Harry Kane has praised Gareth Southgate as one of the country's greatest ever managers following his resignation. He says Southgate made our nation connect by making memories that will last forever. Newcastle's Eddie Howe is a favourite of many to replace Southgate. Former Chelsea boss Graham Potter is the bookies' favourite, while Lee Carsley won the Under-21 Euros last year with England. Meanwhile, Serena Wiegmann has led the Lionesses through qualifying to the Women's Euros next summer in Switzerland. They sealed qualification with a 0-0 draw in Sweden. And for the first Test match post Jimmy Anderson's retirement, Mark Wood is back in the 11 for the second Test against the West Indies at Trent Bridge. It will be the first Test match England have played at home since 2012 without either Anderson or Stuart Broad in the side.
This is Times Radio.
Here's the truth about AI. AI is only as powerful as the platform it's built into. ServiceNow puts AI to work for people across your business, removing friction and frustration for your employees, supercharging productivity for your developers, providing intelligent...
Love this team. I don't think we've got the best players in the world. There are other countries. For me, Portugal underachieved because the players they have go to maximize potential and get to the final of 2 Euros and a semi-final. Yes, okay, we're very fortunate that in most of the competitions he played in terms of the side of the draw we were in, but he has no control over that. He can only play who's in front of him. The reality is he got to the final. Yes, we didn't win, but I don't see it as a failure.
I agree with that. There have been some successes. He has moved England in the right direction. And whoever picks up the baton, if we do go on and win something, I think that he's broken down all those barriers because there is a belief now we can get deep in competitions.
Yes.
We were just quarter-final teams, mate. Every time.
He set a standard now.
He has set a standard.
Yeah. And I don't think if a manager does come in and he doesn't get people with that standard, I think then you're going to see them going. I don't think that's definitely the case. That was on White and Jordan earlier. That was Sean Barnes. Shabana Hearn and Scott Minto are sitting in for Jim White. And Simon Jordan from 10 a.m. tomorrow. Here's another one. Speaking to TalkSport's Hawksby and Jacob, Stan Collymore gave his ideal replacement for Gareth Southgate.
Pep ain't leaving Man City. Klopp has the Scouse, not English thing, and having managed Liverpool, and Liverpool being an outlier in England, and Mourinho's just signed a contract with Fenerbahce. So the reality of the situation might be a halfway house between FA, progressive coach, and somebody already doing the job, and that would be Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe can talk the talk, good in press conferences, proactive style of management, got Jason Tindall alongside him. I already saw a Henry Winter say maybe promote an Ashley coach as a coach underneath him. I think England fans would buy that.
That was
money, mate.
Stan Collymore was saying that. Yeah, Eddie Howe. I would love Eddie Howe. Don't get me wrong. Love him. Him, Graham Potter, Lee Carsley, more than happy with right now. I really am. I think the more I think about it, the more I hear about the Argentina thing, the De La Fuente at Spain, the Gareth Southgate one coming through and being a manager. The more I like it, the more I think you've got to maybe promote within. Paul Hawksby and Andy Jacobs are back from 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon with a whole host of exciting guests. Terrible producer on that show. Terrible.
Yeah.
What's his name again? Spoofus or something?
Spoofus. Yeah. Big, tall, lanky thing.
Horrible.
He's got that little, he's got like a rat growing across his top of his lip.
I can't remember his name, but it was awful.
Boofus, Joofus, Doofus.
Hopefully they'll get soon. Improve that show. Right, a little earlier on Drive, Harry Redknapp joined Andy Goldstein and Andy Townsend. Here's what Harry had to say on Gareth Southgate stepping down as England manager.
For me, it's his decision at the end of the day. I did think he would call it a day. I have a feeling he'd pack up. He's had a good run, and I suppose he's been, he's got some abuse during this tournament. He probably, every time you pick your phone up, there's some silly message on there about, some stupid joke or whatever. And he probably, social media, he probably gets to hear about a lot of this rubbish. He probably thought, I don't need this, and I've done what I can do, and let's move on. Let somebody else have a crack.
Yeah, Harry Redknapp there, obviously speaking on Goldstein and Andy Townsend show. Drive tomorrow from 4 p.m. from TalkSport. Andy Goldstein and Andy Townsend tomorrow.
Yes,
Surprised you're not? No. Not leaving us? No. You sure?
Yep. Staying here.
You're staying?
Yeah, lovely sense.
Alright, let's get back to some calls. Let's go to Kay, who's an Arsenal fan. Alright, Kay?
How's it going, mate? I'm just going to start calling this stuff speaking to you as an ex-best player, but we move.
It's all right, mate.
You choice to call up, Kane.
It's all right, mate. Yeah, we're all friends, mate. It's all fine.
Right, I've got a perfect suggestion, mate. And I know people are probably going to rate me because I've been hearing some of the reporters sitting down saying now they want an English manager, which is understandable.
You've got Nigel Watkins on the list, mate, so wherever he comes out your mouth ain't the worst.
Right, Patrick Vieira. That'll be super good attacking football. He knows what to do for young talent as well. And I think he's got the cojones, so to speak, to be able to take the guard in the dressing room. I don't particularly think Gareth Southgate is the worst job in the world, even though people have been very including yourself.
In 2 miles, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough, Central.
Rather than going back out to Iceland in the round of 16 or at 2 finals and a semi-final. So I think he's done all right. Fair enough. He could have won, but he did as best as he could, mate. Some of the criticism that he was getting left with after some time is really, really bad. And one thing that I super admired of what he did, what he did is he culturally understood everybody in that dressing room. He knew exactly how to get the cohesion going between all of the players in there. And I think it's testament to him as a human being. I think he did all right, honestly.
Yeah. No,
I just come up short, didn't he?
You can't get away from that. He has changed the mentality of the players who want to go and play for England now. I remember back in the day, players didn't enjoy going to the England camp, and there was divides and that. When they turn up now, it looks like they're all enjoying themselves.
That's all the messages. But we all remember, that Iceland defeat. That was England, because that's probably the lowest point, I think, as an England fan. That's the lowest, and since then it has gone from strength to strength. Those days hopefully are behind us.
Yeah, it's all over for the night at the World Match Play Darts in Blackpool. Watching for Talk Sport was Abby Davies.
Yeah, another enthralling night here at the Winter Gardens has seen the reigning champion Nathan Aspinall, the world number 4 Gedwin Price, and last year's runner-up Johnny Clayton all dismissed. But cool hand Luke Humphries, well, it was sumptuous tungsten toss-in yet again from him. Despite not having things all his own way, he cut a frustrated figure at times, but is through to take on Dimitri Vandenberg in the quarter-final. Tomorrow, a last 8 lineup will be completed. 3-time winner Michael Van Gogh and newly crowned World Cup victor Michael Smith and Voltage Rob Cross all in action. Why would you not come join us from 7 p.m. on TalkSport 2?
In a quarter of a mile, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough, Central.
Thank you, very good day.
I'll tell you what, no one's talked about your gaffer, by the way, Kieran McKenna.
No, thankfully not.
No, he's one for the future.
Leave him alone. I'll tell you what, though, Lee Davis should have been in play.
Who's that, sorry?
Lee Davis, our left back.
Exit at junction 6.
Outside the Premiership.
Yeah. Who got picked out? Was it David Nugent got picked once for England outside of the Premier League?
Steve Ball.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the 3rd exit onto Tuns Lane, A355.
Smooth for some ways.
He's so nice. He scored his debut, didn't he?
Yeah, he nicked it off Jermaine Defoe on the line.
He did.
Defoe was fuming.
You're nicking, you.
You're 100% nicking it. Jake Bothroyd got picked for England as well. Billy's telling me in the year. When he's playing in the Championship. So
right, okay. Not really.
You've been going on about that Ipswich left back. What's his name again, Paul? Sorry.
Kieran McKenna, but that's not what I'm
No, the left back you're talking about, yeah?
Leif Davis.
Yeah.
Put me in your dream team next season.
Yeah, you talked about him, haven't you?
Yeah, he's a good player. And other clubs have been looking at him, Paul. I don't want to scare you, matey, but his name has been linked with a number of big clubs. If he performs well this season in the Premier League to the level that I've seen him play, then yeah, there's going to be lots of clubs sniffing around him, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully he does.
Nomination for you.
Go on.
Michael Carrick.
Yeah.
Wayne Rooney.
Oh, come on, mate.
Who's the gaffer?
Michael Carrick's a gaffer. Wayne Rooney's his assistant. I think we just got to think differently. We've tried all these different managers, from Italians to Swedes.
I like Michael Carrick.
Michael Carrick. His name's, you can get some odds on him. He's on that list.
Yes.
I just think to myself, Gareth Southgate, right?
Wayne Rooney.
He can't think attacking. He can't decide attacking.
Exit at the roundabout onto Tons Lane. Continue on A355 for 1 mile.
It's not the worst shout in the world.
No, it's not. No.
Let's go to Alan, who's a Wrexham fan. Al?
Big Al?
Are you alright?
Are you big?
No, not really.
You're not, little Al. Go on, little Al.
You're all going on, about getting these English managers, and then you turn around and you say you want a German manager or an Argentinian manager, which I don't think the English fans are going to accept anyway. But you go for the likes of Bielsa, who's going to attack.
Bielsa would be insane.
Bielsa would be He'll give the England fans what they want.
No, that's what I mean. I like the idea of it. That's why I'm it's... the thought of...
You're quite right.
He's turning South American football across now, isn't he? So,
well, he's going in, isn't he, in his interviews, that's for sure.
You could do it here.
Do you remember his little translator? He used to stand next to him and look up at him. He was scared, the translator, didn't he?
Yeah.
He always looked a little bit intimidated.
Work experience.
Yeah, looking up at Bielsa thinking, oh, please don't shout at me.
Yeah. I mean, Bielsa would be a great shout. Play some decent football, would be exciting. But
Bielsa, I mean, I've never heard him speak English, Bielsa. He always had his translator. You can't have an England manager that doesn't speak the lingo. Can you? That's not... You can't have your little translator doing all the team talk. You can't, can you? You can't have that. Apparently Majestic, he can speak Argentinian.
Bielsa Majestic.
That's a great twosome.
I tell you what, they've been doing bits, haven't they?
Great twosome. Yeah. The tunes will be good in the dressing room.
The tunes will be banging. All right, Al, top man, mate. Thanks for your call. Bielsa's on the list. But we'll keep getting through them if you can. Phone us up. But we're going to do some back pages next.
The Sports Bar with TalkSportBet.com. Brilliant broadcaster, best in class bookie. Say no more. 18 plus BeGambleAware.org.
If you've bought a timeshare, did you really get what you expected? Or were you sold a dream that's now a nightmare? With high maintenance fees, loss of exclusivity, and limited availability, timeshare ownership for many is now just a liability.
For a job done right, an incredible summer of sport continues. The 2024 Olympic Games on TalkSport and TalkSport 2. All the action and all the drama direct from Paris 2024. Starts on the 26th of July on TalkSport and TalkSport 2. Official Olympic broadcaster of Paris 2024.
Still got the old goodbye.
In a quarter of a mile, turn left onto Buckingham Avenue.
Back pages, Simon Johnson.
Evening, guys.
Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. You alright?
Yeah, very well. How are you?
Yeah, okay. Got over the defeat, I think, on Sunday. Just moving forward. I made the point, sorry, Premier League football returns exactly a month.
Turn left onto Buckingham Avenue.
Premier League is back.
Yeah, not made the point in last night's show that, you know, let's be honest, the last few weeks it's just been a distraction whilst waiting for the real thing to start again.
Yeah, the real deal.
Pre-season, you mean?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm already counting down the days to watching Chelsea play Wrexham in America. So yeah, that'll be far more entertaining than some of the football I've seen from England over the last few weeks.
Look, I've got to get into it, mate, because Eddie Howe's all over the back pages.
Continue on Buckingham Avenue for 1 mile.
Maybe he's teaching Andy Gordon how to ride it. FA facing Eddie fight. Newcastle vowed to dig in over Howe. Let's get Eddie to rumble on the back page of the Sun. Newcastle hands off Howe on the back page of the Telegraph. He is obviously a front runner.
Certainly is, and the Sun, for example, they quote Eddie Howe from a previous interview where he described the England position as the ultimate job. So this is clearly something he's thought about in the past, and all the noises are, although not sort of directly coming from Eddie Howe, but all the noises are on the back pages are that Eddie Howe would be open to the idea of taking over. Now, of course, this is not necessarily something that Newcastle want to happen, and the Newcastle chief executive, Darren Eales, is quoted on a lot of the back pages saying he's our employee and we're not looking to release Eddie. Asked if Newcastle would fight to keep him, he replied, absolutely yes. Eddie's been an amazing manager and we're committed to him. Now, there is a release clause roughly around about £5 million in Eddie Howe's contract. I don't think that will scare the FA off. But yeah, he's clearly in the mix. But so are a few others like Graham Potter, Thomas Tuchel, Pochettino. These are some of the other names. But another thing that the guys is that Lee Carsley, the England under-21 coach, might be in a position to be like an interim coach. England play Ireland in the UEFA Nations League on September the 7th. And so if they haven't just made a decision by then, or you know, they're still weighing up candidates, it looks like they'll turn to Lee Carsley, who's highly rated by the FA himself as a possible future candidate, and that he could step in on a short-term basis.
But if that's going to be the case, then that writes out Eddie Howe for me, because what you can't do is go halfway through a season. Either you make this decision now for Eddie Howe, or he does.
In a quarter of a mile, turn right onto Western Road.
And this is the other time that there is a natural break, but I think they've got to be fair to Newcastle here. They don't really want to fall out with Newcastle either. If they're going to get it done, do it now where they can still get a replacement in. Pre-season's barely underway. If they don't do that, then that tells me then that they're not interested in Potter, because Potter's available now.
Yeah.
So if
take the next right onto Western Road.
September, then you know they.
Well, the Potter one starts becoming more and more like the forefront, because you know, if they are digging their heels in, I'm just reading a bit on the Telegraph, they're saying he's got a secret extension.
In 200 yards, turn right onto Oxford Avenue.
And the chief exec comes out and says, we love him and we're sure he's going to stay. I mean...
Well, if Eddie Howe, as he said, right, and this is to both of us...
Take the next right onto Oxford Avenue, then turn right.
That is the figure sort of that is...
Take the next right, then your destination will be on the left.
It's an enormous sum. I mean, obviously, if you then tag on wages and of course the backroom staff Eddie Howe what to bring in, then the bill starts totting up a bit, because Eddie Howe will be on a decent wage at Newcastle, and as much as England is his dream job, he'll...
Take the next left onto Banbury Avenue, then turn left onto Western Road.
Suddenly becomes